If you've just joined us, welcome. We are just waiting as the rest of the students move across from the waiting room, and then we're going to begin. Welcome everyone, we're going to be starting in just a moment. We're just waiting for the last few people to move across from the waiting room. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Professional Careers Networking event. We are delighted to have in the audience today students from the Professional Careers units, working in professions, the service enterprise, and managing and developing careers. We are joined by an impressive lineup of industry speakers who have volunteered their time to share their career stories and to impart advice about networking, mentors, and how to enhance employability. My name is Dr. Karina Wardle, and I am the unit coordinator for the service enterprise. My colleagues Kushan Prasad and Kay Dronicus, the unit coordinators of the other careers units, will be sharing their MC duties with me today. To help facilitate this event, we have our School of Business engagement team, Ramon Daun and Amita Chand. Collectively, the five of us form the Professional Careers Leadership Team. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we meet today and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this webinar. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of Australia. The Professional Careers units are designed to enhance your employability, not just upon graduation, rather extending across your career lifespan to prepare you for the future of work. This webinar hones in on professional networking as a key tool for growth in a resourceful career, and one that we may find even more valuable considering the events of the past 2 years. The advice being imparted is relevant to all students, so factoring in variations in the stage of your individual career journeys. During this webinar, there will be opportunities to engage through the Q&A function. You can add questions at any stage during the webinar, and there is an upvote option to like a question and help raise it to the top of the list. You may also be asked to participate in a flash chat with all students simultaneously submitting a response to a question. We also have a hashtag for both events in this unit, so you can post on social media and on LinkedIn using the hashtag WSUPCC. Now for a disclaimer, this webinar is being recorded. As attendees, your video and audio are not being transmitted, and you will not be visible or heard during the webinar. By participating in the chat, you consent to the information shared in these sections being collected and used by the Western Sydney University team for learning purposes. Now, I have the absolute pleasure to introduce you to our keynote speaker, Nikki Hield. Nikki is the Director of Corp Training, established to provide dynamic and modern presentations appropriate to the business needs of today. Her programs focus on developing interpersonal skills which enhance business relationships and professional visibility, resulting in increased credibility and sales. Regarded as a specialist in her field, Nikki delivers ongoing presentations to major Australian insurance and finance companies, clubs, hotels, law firms, universities, sporting associations, government departments, and a diversity of SME businesses. Nikki co-authored the book, Views on the Way to the Top. She publishes numerous articles and her input is sought from various media channels. Additionally, she has presented at both national and international events. As a corporate trainer, speaker, author, and businesswoman, Nikki is described as a dynamic and entertaining presenter whose interactive approach motivates positive change. Her facilitation style is engaging and inclusive, enabling participants to easily transfer and integrate their new learnings. Additionally, Nikki is passionate about high-quality education and providing people with the skills to build a strong personal brand that will maximize career progression and opportunities. All presentations are interactive, and Nikki's ability to connect with her audience ensures key learning objectives are met. Please welcome Nikki Heald from Corp Training.
Wonderful, and thank you so much, Karina, for that very kind introduction. Well, welcome everybody, all here on bright and early on a Thursday morning, ready to participate in the Professional Careers Conference. Very exciting day ahead and lots of interesting information planned for you. So today, essentially, we're going to be talking about all things networking, networking for career success. So I'd probably like to start at the outset by suggesting, in terms of career success, when we look at your skills, your qualifications, your knowledge and your expertise that you might have currently and where you currently sit professionally, what we know is that those things simply buy you a ticket to compete in the game. They're not enough to ensure that you'll win. We know that business essentially is not business. Business is in fact personal, and people do business with people they like. People do business with people they like. People do business with people they trust, and people do business with people that they perceive as being credible. So whilst skills, qualifications, expertise, technical capability, etc., certainly are tools that you need for your career, the ability to build and nurture key alliances is something that's really going to help you in terms of your progression and opportunities that are actually created for you in the future. Today is going to be interactive. As Karina mentioned, we've got that Q&A and that chat function available. So please, I'm going to be asking some questions throughout my presentation today, and I'd really like you to help me. I believe that the more that you actually get engaged in this process, the more likely you're going to take away some value from this morning's session. So you can see in front of you at the moment that I've suggested 1, 2, it's not all about you, and I certainly don't mean to offend anybody by suggesting that. But when we look at where we are currently sitting, each of us, irrespective of where we are in our careers, where we're currently studying at university or whether or not we actually have, very sound employment opportunities at the moment, it's not all about us. At the end of the day, we have competitors. You have competitors, I have competitors. And for you, when you are going out into that job market and seeking out those opportunities that you're going to be looking for, you're going to be coming across people who are essentially just like you. By that, I mean, you're going to be coming up against other professionals, other graduates who are vying for the same jobs and the same opportunities that you will be applying for yourself. So when we look at 1, 2, not all about you, there will be competitors that you come up against, and those competitors really will probably have that similar skill. They will have that similar expertise. They may also have very similar qualifications to you after they have graduated. And then we have to start looking around the fact is, what will be my point of difference? If I'm coming up against competitors, other professionals, other young graduates who are just like myself, what is going to be that standout for me, and what is going to make me memorable, and what is going to help me get that dream job? And this is where key alliances really come into play. Building those effective relationships, understanding how we nurture those relationships and leverage those for our success, and in turn, combined with those things, how we actually build a professional reputation, a positive visibility, a positive presence, whatever you'd like to call it. But it's about getting ourselves positively recognised and then developing those key alliances that we can leverage in the future for our future career opportunities and success. So my first question to you, getting you all involved, is networking. Based on what I've been doing for a number of years, it's really quite interesting to hear people's ideas and thoughts around networking. And often there is a huge misconception around networking. And based on this misconception that people have around networking, it actually causes them to network ineffectively rather than understanding what it truly is, thereby being able to maximise opportunities that are coming our way each and every day. So firstly, networking. If somebody were to ask you, what is networking, or you had to describe it, what would you say? So jump on the chat for me on that Q&A function. Let's see how many of you are prepared to share your thoughts and ideas around what networking really means for you. Okay, we're getting people. Okay, so we've got somebody's coming up with connections, forming connections, connecting with people around you, making new friends, creating business relationships. Great one there. Networking is a skill, absolutely. It's a skill, and like any skill, we can further develop our abilities around that. A list of contacts that can support you, your knowledge and growth. Okay, so some excellent answers here. Fantastic, everybody. Thank you. It's great to see that a lot of people came up with connecting with people and building relationships. So at the end of the day, when we look at what networking is, it is all of those things that you came up with, and they're coming in thick and fast. So well done, team. There's lots of great answers out there. Gosh, the exchange of information and ideas, establishing connections for mutual benefits. Fantastic. Gosh, some great answers. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so let's have a look. Networking. Networking essentially is an everyday life skill. It's something that you and I are doing every single day of our lives, but we aren't consciously aware of the fact that we're networking. And I say that we're networking every single day and it's a life skill because networking fundamentally is really around developing mutually beneficial relationships with other people, mutually beneficial relationships with other people before you actually need it. Also around building mutually beneficial relationships, the key is also sustaining. So it's developing mutually beneficial relationships and sustaining those relationships before you actually need it. The key component around networking is the beforehand. And I say that it's really important to build your relationships before you need them because essentially when we look at assisting people or them assisting us, we need to have that relationship in place. We need to build the foundations of that trust, that likability, and that credibility that I talked about at the beginning of the session this morning. We need to have those foundations in place before you and I can ask the question. Now, you might be thinking, well, what question is Nikki talking about? Well, I don't know. It could be any question that you might need to ask of your alliances. It could be, can you help me out? Could you test or challenge a theory or an idea that I might have? Would you be happy to recommend or refer me? So whatever question it might be that you need to ask assistance around with your alliances, your networks, it's really important that you've got that nice relationship in place at the outset. We have to build the foundations of trust before we can actually ask our alliances to help us with anything. Now, the other misconception around networking is a lot of people actually don't like it. And I'm sure if I quickly ask for a hands up around whether or not you actually enjoyed or the thought of networking, you know, was something exciting to you, there's probably going to be a lot of hands that probably pop up and say, hey, don't really like networking at all. I feel very uncomfortable with it. Many people have indicated that they feel awkward. And there are lots of challenges associated with networking. The other interesting thing about networking, which makes people dislike it, and again, we're not always consciously aware of it, if we look at the word network or the word networking, both of those contain the word work. And when we start thinking about work or working, it immediately conjures up an image of just too difficult. I've got to step out of my comfort zone. oh my goodness, I've got to go and interact and talk and engage with people that I don't know. And what will I talk about? So the word networking, because it has connotations of work attached to it, immediately we form an opinion that it's something that we may automatically dislike. But the other interesting thing around the word networking is that, particularly if you are employed and your employer has sent you to a conference or to an event where you are encouraged to network, there's also the expectation attached to it that we bring back some kind of result. So not only is the word work got all those negative connotations, but the expectation that we come back after we've networked and we come back and we have some kind of result that we can bring to the table to our employer even makes it even more onerous as well. So maybe you don't like to network, but I'd like to really encourage you to not think about it as a work thing. It's really, as I said, about developing and building those relationships before you need them. It's like any other relationship that you have in your life. It does take time, it will take commitment, and it does take energy to build those lasting key alliances. But please, I'd really like us to reframe it to more around a positive experience that can assist you rather than attaching any kind of result or work connotation to it. The other thing that's really important as young professionals, emerging leaders, for you to appreciate is that networking cannot be outsourced. This is something that each and every one of us have to engage in throughout our careers. And in fact, the higher up the tree you progress throughout your career, the more expectation there will be that you will be out and about networking and representing your company and representing your employer and indeed representing yourself. It is something that we cannot outsource in business. We can outsource so many things in business today. We can outsource IT, we can outsource training, we can outsource marketing, but we can't outsource, building relationships with other people. It's not something I can call somebody up and say, hey, can you go and do some networking for me and I'll pay you $40 an hour. Unfortunately, networking is about relationships. It's people driven and it's something that we need to do ourselves. And so I'm suggesting that the earlier we start to equip ourselves with the tools around networking and how to do it effectively and to build the confidence, the better we're going to be as we progress throughout our career. So it can't be outsourced. Something that we need to learn to do despite it might feeling challenging or a little bit difficult. And it is a critical career skill. As I said a moment ago, the expectation is when you are employed that there will be various events and various conferences and training days and team building activities that you will have to participate in. And the expectation will be that you will be able to network and engage in building relationships with other people. Now, again, those misconceptions around networking. So ladies and gentlemen, please do not be misled. Networking is certainly none of these things. Networking is definitely not about marketing. It is not about selling in any way. Again, when we go around to a networking event or we're networking online, and I'll talk more about that later, this is not about selling our products or our services. This is really about building those relationships. So not about marketing, not about selling at that point, certainly not about asking for a job. That's not to say that down the track though, once we've built that relationship and we've got that trust in existence and that likability and that credibility in place, absolutely it might lead to a potential job opportunity, but not initially. It's not about asking for a job at the outset. When you go to a networking event, it's not about distributing 1,000 business cards. One of the things that I talk about when I'm speaking to a lot of my corporate clients is it's really around quality over quantity. This is not about going to a networking event and dealing the deck. This is not about going to a networking event and distributing 1,000 business cards in the space of 30 minutes. Absolutely not. It is really taking the time to engage with another person, maybe forming connections with a couple of those, maybe distributing a couple of business cards. And again, it's not about dealing the deck. It's not about how many cards I can distribute at that networking event. It's not about the free food. It's not about the free alcohol. So we don't go to networking events, although, it's quite interesting how many people that I've seen go to networking events and they're, chasing the wait staff around for that drink or that party pie or sausage roll. And it's certainly not about picking up. So networking is none of these things. Now, if we look at the list that I've just created there on the screen, I'm sure you and I have attended a networking event where you have met somebody who would fall into one or more of these categories. As I said, the person that's just so keen to hand their business card over to you. That person, as I've said, who's really looking around for that next drink or that party pie. And maybe you've met somebody who's gone to a networking event and they've kind of thought that it was a speed dating opportunity. I don't know. But it's certainly none of those things. Fundamentally, as I said, it's all about relationships. Networking is about building the love with other people before you actually need it. Now, be savvy, team. This is really important for you. There is never, it's never too early to start your networking. It's never too early to start building key alliances. Networking when you need something is too late. We have to have that fundamental, solid foundation of a relationship in place, as I said, before we can ask for assistance or before we can ask that question. So what I often see in business is people doing it the opposite way around. Rather than building the relationship, taking time to nurture that key alliance and really develop the love. And when I'm talking about building love in business, I'm not talking about that kind of love, but business love. But I see all the time that people, might be struggling, or they might, their sales might be low, or they want a job, or they need something, and they start asking for assistance with people that they haven't really even taken the time to nurture. And you can imagine that if somebody asked you for help and they hadn't taken time to build the relationship or get to know you, your answer's probably going to be no, or you're not really going to go out of your way. So networking, when you need something, is too late. Start networking, start building those alliances, because again, when you need the assistance, they're only going to be too happy to help you. It's building foundations for your future, as I said a moment ago. And really, when we look at networking, it's about using your most powerful marketing tool. When we look at your most powerful marketing tool, you are your most powerful marketing tool. People do business with people. You see, you can have a fancy website. You can have a cool title. You can have any kind of catchy gimmick. Again, you can have a schmick business card or brochures, but at the end of the day, people don't do business with those things. People do business with you. So use your most powerful marketing tool in the networking process. You are your living, breathing, walking, talking marketing machine. Living, breathing, walking, talking marketing machine, and use it wisely. Okay, I've got a question here quickly. Networking is a great skill, but could it not turn into manipulation and using that person for their own benefits? Okay, so that's a really great question. Thank you, Lourdes, for that. It is a really great skill. And as I said earlier, this is not about manipulation. This is not about me building a relationship with you for me to get something out of it. If we look back at the definition, it's around building a mutually beneficial relationship with another person before we need it. So what that means, Lourdes, is I build a relationship with you, you build a relationship with me. Again, we're both happy to do so, of course. But it means that if you need some help from me, I'd quite happily assist you, and likewise, you would happily assist me. So this is not a one-way street. Please understand that in order to receive, you need to give. So as I said, time, commitment, energy, and effort. It won't just happen overnight, but it's certainly not about manipulation and a one-way street. It is certainly about leveraging the relationship for the benefit of all parties involved. Okay, so thank you. Great question. So your powerful marketing tool is you. Use yourself to your advantage. Now, I'm going to ask you, we are at the moment during a pandemic. I understand that many of you, unfortunately, have not been able to set foot on your campus and not been able to engage in face-to-face networking. And this is where we go. We're looking at online networking opportunities to engage. But let's be a bit creative. Let's have a little question here, or a little opportunity to think, where could you engage at the moment? So who can help me out here? Where could you engage at the moment? Opportunity, cafes? Absolutely, yes, you could. LinkedIn. Okay, great. I'm going to talk more about LinkedIn in a moment. Absolutely. Has anyone got some other ideas? So we certainly can engage in LinkedIn. FaceTime, yes, absolutely. That's a good one. We can definitely engage in FaceTime networking. I'll talk about that in a moment. Has anyone got some other ideas? Social media, supermarkets, work meetings, yes, definitely. The suggestion here was cafes and supermarkets. Some of you might be thinking, well, how can I network at a cafe? How can I network at a supermarket? Obviously, cafes are a bit difficult at the moment, but when we go back to being able to network face-to-face, networking is an everyday life skill. You might be sitting on the train and you might engage with a conversation with somebody. You might be a member of a gym and you might go to a gym and regularly see somebody there. You go to barbecues on a weekend and you meet new people and you talk about what you do and they talk about what they do. Great opportunities to network at these places. We don't need to be in a formal networking environment to network. We can be networking in any situation. These chance encounters at cafes, supermarkets, gyms, train, on an aeroplane, these serendipitous and chance encounters are often the best way, but often we're not looking at those as networking opportunities. They're missed because we don't really believe that they're true networking opportunities. Anywhere there's people, university tutorials, online and Zoom, group work, absolutely, phone call, more personal. Lo and behold, having to pick up a phone and actually talk to somebody else. Oh my goodness, wouldn't that be a novel idea if we did that? Okay, so thank you, everybody. There's some wonderful responses there. Business events and expos. Yes, absolutely. I know Western Sydney Uni hold a number of those. So all of these sorts of events are really great places and great opportunities for you to engage with other people. In terms of the pandemic, it's really changed the way that we behave and interact. So again, we're not doing that face-to-face stuff. We will come back to that. And just around that, it is equally as important for you to have the skills to network face-to-face as it is for you to have the skills to network on digital platforms. So please, appreciate that what we're going through at the moment is temporary in terms of networking. We will eventually get back to that face-to-face stuff, and they're really important skills for you developed as well. So you can increase your digital presence. You might publish a blog. You might comment on Facebook or LinkedIn and on those social media platforms. Attending webinars and connecting with the people who are attending those webinars, or connecting with the speaker, is another opportunity to network. We've talked about phone calls. We've talked about, Zoom. We've got the opportunity for Zoom and Team, and we can do Zoom coffee catch-ups where you get a cup of coffee, I get a cup of coffee, we arrange a meeting, and it's just like if we were sitting in a coffee shop, interacting and chatting. And we can share information through a Zoom or a Team platform. You can also, again, send a handwritten note, something different that a lot of people don't do. And again, that sets you apart from all those other people. It makes you memorable. You're doing something that's a little bit different. So when we look at how we can network and opportunities to engage at the moment, they are still there. They are absolutely still there. It just means that you just need to be a little bit more inventive, and you need to be a little bit more creative and thoughtful around the way that you network. So it's not a one-way street. It's not just LinkedIn at the moment. There are these other platforms and tips and tricks for you to engage in to actually nurture and build your key alliances. I've got a question here. In your opinion, is it easier or more important to be networking online or face-to-face? Dylan, thank you for that question. That is a wonderful question. Look, I'm a firm believer that where possible, face-to-face is probably the best way. And the reason is because when you and I are face-to-face, we get the opportunity to use eye contact. We get the opportunity to really read and visibly see each other's body language, those sorts of things. We have platforms such as Zoom and Teams. They are wonderful platforms and certainly got us through the last couple of years. But essentially, at the end of the day, networking is a people skill. And I really think that the more that you can actually learn how to do it face-to-face when the opportunity comes around again, the better it is. That's why I said earlier, don't just rely on digital platforms. Please start thinking about, when this opens up, how you're going to network face-to-face, because it is probably the best way that you can do it. Okay, and can I just say networking works? So if you are thinking, well, this is a lot of effort, this is taking me out of my comfort zone, I have to engage, I have to commit to touching base with people, that kind of thing, it works. Personally speaking, you're going to hear from your panel members shortly, and they're going to share all of their experiences around networking. And I know they've got some fabulous ideas and stories to share with you about how networking has helped them. But personally speaking, I've had my own business now for nearly 17 years. Interestingly, I've had the same website for 17 years. I'm about to probably actually close it down because really I don't market. I don't advertise any of my work. All of my work, thankfully, has been referral based. All of my work has been recommended. And that is because at the start of my career, I developed a network of key alliances. I committed to nurturing this small group because, again, as I said, this is not about quantity, it's about quality. And these key alliances believed in me and they supported me and they have recommended me. And that's how I've actually built my business over 17 years. So it's not through any kind of marketing or advertising or gimmicks. As I said, if you really want to progress and get the job that you want and be exposed to really interesting opportunities throughout your professional life, it works. So it really does take a little bit of time and effort, but essentially it's really worth it because it does work. Now, social media, it links into the question that was just asked earlier, should we do it, on these digital platforms or face-to-face? Social media is a great tool. The platforms that we have available to us to network are wonderful. But my word of warning or caution here is just use them wisely. And I say that because social media platforms and your online presence are wonderful things to enhance your professional visibility. So these are ways that you can actually promote your talent and to promote the value that you can offer to other people, because really you want to create a reputation for yourself whereby you are recognised firstly for your talent and secondly for the value that you create for other people. When I talk about building your professional visibility, I do not mean for one moment that this is any kind of showing off or loving yourself or shouting for the rooftops, how good am I, or any kind of chest beating, look at me, look at me. No. When I'm talking about professional visibility or your reputation, I'm using it in the context of getting people to know you through your talent and the value that you can create for other people. But social media, use it wisely. It is a really good tool to promote your professional visibility, and it's also a really good tool to network. However, networking, as I said, is that people skill. It's interpersonal relationships with other people. So here I say, technology should never outsource or replace the human touch that is required to build long-lasting business relationships. Now, the value of networking. Here, again, I'm going to ask your assistants, what do you get out of it? Again, if you've got to go and stretch yourself and challenge yourself, I'm a firm believer in, only doing something whereby there is going to be benefit. It's no point you investing or committing in doing something, anything in your life, unless you're actually going to get some kind of benefit, result, or outcome. What is the value, do you think, in networking? So what do you think you'll get out of it? What are some benefits? A friend. Yes, thank you. As I said, it's not all about work, work, work. It's about building relationships, and there are opportunities to create new friendships, lifelong relationships, accessing opportunities, wonderful. Different ideas. Somebody has suggested different ideas and someone to challenge you. Excellent. Benefiting your future career, potential relationships, positive relationships, increasing your knowledge. Somebody has suggested mentorship. I'll talk about that in a moment. People who can align with your vision has been suggested here. Chance for self-growth. Gaining new knowledge and business opportunities in your chosen field. Better understanding of your industry. Absolutely. If you're networking with people who are working within an industry or profession that you're thinking about, it's a wonderful opportunity to get to know them. Leverage that relationship. Pick their brains. Find out what they love about their job. More importantly, find out what they don't like about their job. That's the most important question you could probably ask anyone, is what do you find most difficult and what do you find most challenging about your career? Increases employment opportunities. Okay, insight into new and different fields. All right, well, thank you. Absolutely, some wonderful, wonderful responses here. Great, formatting new ideas and beliefs. So we can see already from a very quick brainstorm, there are so many benefits to investing in, nurturing alliances and developing those key relationships in business. So As I said, when we develop those key alliances, those professional relationships, these people inherently want success for you. They are happy to champion your efforts, and they would happily recommend or refer you. They would also create opportunities for you. So again, when we look at the business relationships that we create, and because we have the solid foundations in place, these people inherently want success for you. So they will champion your efforts. They will help you out whenever they can. They will share their knowledge, their expertise, and create opportunities for you. As I said, I know about this because this is essentially what my alliances did for me. The other thing is, as I said, it increases your visibility. This is an opportunity when you network, when you're attending webinars, when you're commenting, when you're on LinkedIn, when you're doing all of these things, you have an opportunity to showcase your talent, your expertise, highlight your knowledge, show what you're good at. It also enhances collaboration with people. Again, when we have solid foundations, solid relationships, people are really happy to work with us. People are happy to collaborate with us, again, because we've got that positive reputation. Networking also is a really huge confidence builder. And I say that because whether it is face-to-face, or whether it is through those online platforms, networking involves communication. And communication is part of the skill set that we need in terms of moving into opportunities and throughout our careers. So communication, social skills is another important skill that you develop through networking. So it's communication that you'll get better at. It's developing your social skills, but it's also developing your public speaking skills. When you're on a Zoom, or when you're on a Teams, or when you're at a conference, or you're attending some kind of event, you are communicating, you're talking with other people, you're asking them questions, and you're really enhancing your public speaking skills. And again, public speaking skills are critical leadership skills. Again, the higher up the tree you get, not only will the expectation be that you can network effectively, but the expectation will be that you can get on your feet and speak confidently. Now, again, if I ask people for a poll around public speaking, whether you liked it or not, most people dislike public speaking, and I understand why. I understand why people dislike public speaking so much, because it's one of the 10 fear factors across the globe. In fact, it's right up there with death, divorce, and a tax audit. So you can see why people just really don't like public speaking. But it's, again, another critical skill for you as emerging leaders to consider, increasing your knowledge around as well. Developing mentorships. Now, I know Western Sydney Uni have a wonderful executive networking program in place, and I think you're going to hear a little bit more about that later today. The wonderful thing about networking is that when we do build a relationship with somebody, particularly in the industry or the profession that we're looking at, we have the chance to let them be our mentor. And the wonderful thing about mentorships is that a mentor's role, essentially, is to help and guide someone else's development. So that's really what mentorship is. It's not to do the work for you. It's not to jump in and save you. No, mentors really are around helping and guiding, sharing their expertise and their knowledge with you, and also sufficiently challenging you to stretch yourself and get out of your comfort zone. Now, mentors or mentorship might seem very old-fashioned. In fact, it dates back to ancient Greek times. So mentorships and mentoring have been around for very, very long. And whilst you might think they're old-fashioned, again, they are things around your career that really work. Now, networking protocol, this is really important to understand. So when we go to a networking event, and even when you're online networking, there are some protocols that need to be observed. Who can tell me what they understand the word protocol to me? So when we're networking face-to-face or when we're networking online, there are some protocols that need to be observed. Who can, rules, unspoken rules, regulations? Absolutely. Okay, so when we look at protocol, it is around rules or regulations. Another word could be courtesy, respect. So manners is another word that you could use. So standards, absolutely. So networking There are some rules, regulations, standards, protocols, etiquette, manners, all of those things that you've come up with. And it's really important that we understand how to network effectively, but also the do's and don'ts when we network. I'm going to go through very quickly some do's and don'ts around networking. And I've had some questions about if you're introverted, how to break into a group, that kind of thing. And I will be touching on those things in the next few minutes. But networking improves the perception of credibility. Interestingly, if you look like you know what you're doing, people think you know what you're doing. May not be the case, but again, perception is a very powerful persuader in business. The other interesting thing around understanding the rules and standards around networking is it avoids embarrassment. Most behaviour that is perceived as disrespectful in a business scenario is actually unintentional. And it's because the person who practiced the poor behaviour probably didn't quite understand the correct rules for that scenario. So being armed and equipped with the correct rules around networking, again, really allows you to go in and network more confidently, allows you to focus on the other person, and ensures that you don't have to sit there at a networking event thinking, am I doing the wrong thing? Am I saying the wrong thing? So again, understanding the correct protocol avoids embarrassment of yourself or other people. Interestingly, also, when you are employed and when you're working, a lot of the times you will have to network, as I said, as part of your employment. And a lot of the times you might attend with one of your managers or your team leaders or your superiors. Rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, when you go to a networking event with your boss, please understand that your superiors are watching. A lot of work events are conducted, at restaurants or bars or golf days or things like that. And because these networking events are surrounded in social occasion, many times people drop the ball. They forget where they're at. So because they're at a golf day or they're at a restaurant or they're at a bar, they kind of think, oh, well, this is not work. This is a social scenario here. This means I can kind of do what I want, say what I want, those kinds of things. Please understand that at these events, despite the fact they are surrounded in social occasion, they are still business events. And the expectation is that you still conduct yourself in a professional manner because your superiors are watching. They are looking at you when you network and they are observing how you conduct yourself. They are looking as to how you interact. They are looking about, whether you are mingling. They are looking about, even conversation that you might be having with somebody else. So please be rest assured that your superiors are watching and they're working out again whether or not, you might be in line for that next leadership or management position. So again, this really sets the scene for your career as well. Now, in terms of conversation no-nos, when we go to a networking event or whether on, chatting online, there are certain things that we need to avoid. Things such as religion, gossip, swearing, politics, immigration policies. And the other one now that I would probably say is really quite a touchy subject is COVID vaccination. So things such as religion, gossip, swearing, politics, immigration policies, these are topics best avoided when we are getting to know someone. And the reason I suggest this is because these topics are really personal. These are topics that we hold very dear to our heart, and so does the other person that we're trying to build the relationship with. We really don't want to be sharing our opinions on immigration policies. We really probably at the outset don't want to be, sharing political views or extreme views on anything. So we need to stick to topics that are light, that are interesting, again, that are not likely to cause offence and allow us to have a smooth communication process with other people. As I said a moment ago, COVID vaccinations are something that I would again suggest are probably best avoided at the moment. There are people who are really, pro-vax, anti-vax, and again, that's a personal choice for somebody. These are the topics that are best left avoided. So I'm going to go through very quickly some networking tips for you. First one, make sure you create a great first impression. You are your walking, talking, living, breathing marketing machine. And in terms of creating a good first impression, whether it be face-to-face or online, you and I only both have a very small window of opportunity in which to impress. In fact, first impressions are formed in a matter of seconds. So please ensure that you maximise those first few seconds. And the way that you do that is to make sure that you are dressed appropriately. Positive body language cues is the second one. And thinking about your speech, the words that are coming out of your mouth. Are they suitable? Are they appropriate? That kind of thing. So maximise the first impression. Please avoid oversharing. I kind of look at networking when you go to a networking event like a first date. You know, you go along to that first date and you want to set the scene for future contact. You don't want to reveal everything about yourself on that first date because, you know, you want to create a little bit of mystery. And as I said, set the scene to re-engage. So please avoid oversharing. We don't want to give everything up too soon. Like the first date, you don't want to give everything away too soon. I hope not. And we want to set the scene for that future contact. So please avoid oversharing. Listen to other people, be inquisitive, ask them questions. Interestingly, the more that you ask other people questions about themselves, the more they love you. People love to talk about themselves. Ask them, how did you get into that career? What do you like most about doing what you do? You know, what brings you to this event tonight? Have you seen this guest speaker? All these sorts of things that you can be inquiring and inquisitive of the other person and listening and using those really solid communication skills. Also, too, the fourth tip here is to play host. What I suggest here, if you're going, this is at a physical networking event, if you're in a group with other people, I would suggest that you play the host, only if you feel comfortable and confident to do so. By this, I mean, as you were hosting an event in your home, you would maybe offer people a drink. You would be inclusive. You would call someone over that might be standing at a networking event on their own. You would call them in and bring them into the group. You would generate the conversation and keep it flowing. So please, if you can, try to play the role of host, but that's only if you're comfortable and confident to do so. I say that because it makes you memorable. Most people we talked about earlier are not overly confident going to a networking event. Sometimes they don't want to be there. And when we're in this group scenario and somebody is taking the lead and somebody in places the role of host, that means you stand out from the crowd. So again, it's developing your confidence, your social skills, but again, this is building your professional visibility. It makes you memorable. Now, keeping in touch is really important from a networking perspective. It's all very well to exchange business cards with people, and but the thing we've got to commit to is once we've exchanged that business card, we've got to commit to keeping in touch. And that's why I say this is all about quantity over quality. Physically, if you hand out 50, 100 business cards at an event, you psychologically and emotionally can't nurture that many alliances. So be sensible. Only hand out business cards where you believe that there could be a future relationship that you could possibly nurture, but find ways to keep in touch. Again, like any other relationship in your life, be creative. So you might send a card, you might make a phone call, you might invite the person to another event. You might have learned some information about them that you can actually use to connect with them. It might be an article that you've read and you think, well, this might be of interest to that person, and you might forward it to them. So please find ways to be creative. Find ways to make those touch points and find ways to keep yourself top of mind. This is really about making sure that you keep yourself top of mind. In relation to that, people ask me, well, how many, how often should I create touch points? I would say once you first engage in nurturing a relationship or meeting that person, I would suggest touch points of probably once a month, every 3 to 4 weeks perhaps. And again, we're going to use different methods to keep in touch with them. So finding ways to keep in touch and maybe starting out every 3 to 4 weeks or so, okay? And of course, again, if they're responsive, then the frequency can be, intensified in that regard. Can I also just say we don't want to serially stalk anybody. In terms of keeping in touch, if you're getting responses back, fantastic, keep it going. If you are reaching out and attempting to nurture a relationship and you are not getting any response, in the wise words of Kenny Rogers, you've got to know when to hold, know when to fold, know when to walk away, and know when to run. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity today. It's been a great morning. I don't know if we've got time for any questions. We're probably running a little bit behind. I do notice that there are some questions. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be very happy to help you if you'd like to send any questions to LinkedIn if I haven't covered off anything today. But please Again, really understanding, building those relationships, critical career skill. Thank you for the opportunity of speaking today. And don't forget that hashtag WSUPCC. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. It is amazing to see how these key elements of networking can have such a vast impact on professional career journey, ensuring that you connect and stand out from everyone else. Good morning, everyone. My name is Krishan Prasad. I am Unit Coordinator for Working in Professions. Today, I'll be hosting the alumni panel, which focuses on the roles of networking and mentors for career success. Our alumni panel today consists of Sam Cucurello. He is ex-head of Asset Services Asia Pacific, Cushman and Wakefield. Sam has got over 40 years of experience in property services. He was recognized in late 1999 when he was inducted in the Circle of Excellence, a CB Richard Ellis recognition of outstanding achievement. In the year 2000, Sam was given the highest CB Richard Ellis Australasian Award as the Professional of the Year. Sam has lectured throughout the industry, speaking at University of Western Sydney since 1996, University of Technology, Sydney since 2007, Property Council of Australia from 1991 on numerous topics, and IIR conference on GST in 1999 and 2000, and in 2010 at the National University of Singapore. We have Amy Bonici, Function and Event Supervisor at Australian Hotel and Brewery. Amy is a young business-minded woman working in the events and hospitality industry. She has passion for all things hospitality, events, and management. She has completed both a Diploma of Events Management through TAFE, as well as a Bachelor of Business with a major in Hospitality Management, graduating with distinction. During her time at the university, she received both Golden Century Award for Hospitality Management and Golden Century Award for Food and Beverage Management. Amy is currently working as an event and functions manager for the Red Cape Hotel Group. Our third member of the panel is Jay Harold, People and Culture Coordinator at AC3. He is an experienced HR professional. Jay Harold has over 3 years of experience working within industries such as the not-for-profit sector, construction, and technology. His current role is a People and Culture Coordinator at AC3, an Australian-based tech company, which has recently recognized as the 4th best place to work in Australia. Whilst the HR environment can be complex, Jay's ability to connect and build reputation with others contributes to a positive employee experience. As a former UWS graduate, Jay is keen to share his insight and knowledge about working in the HR. And our fourth member is Andrew Pakalis. He's a business development manager with Harvey Norman Commercial Division. Andrew currently as the National Sales Manager for Energy and Carbon Solutions and the CEO for a startup, a national logistics company. He holds over 15 years of experience in the business administration and management industry, particularly focusing on commercial management. Some of his previous roles include strategic manager, project manager, Harvey Norman at Harvey Norman Commercial Division for the Asia Pacific Sales Manager and Tempo Group, and National Commercial Manager, Appliance Online Commercial. And restarted Appliance Online Commercial in 2012 with supply to national ASX client in insurance, childcare, hired rental companies and government contract in education, defense, and energy. So with that short introduction, I have some questions for the panel. So the first question for the panel is, we'll probably ask Sam. If Sam, you can tell us about your organization and your professional career journey.
Thank you, Krishan. Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be on the panel today. I'm going to try and cram in 45 years of career into just a couple of minutes. So I just wanted to mention that my parents migrated to Australia in the 1950s. I think it's always important to appreciate your foundations. Many of us come from different areas and walks of life. It's important to have those foundations. I'm a career property manager, commercial property management, not residential. And my last 35 years, I was 10 years with Jones Lang LaSalle, 20 years with CBRE, and the last 5 years of my career with Cushman & Wakefield. The last 2 decades, I've been very fortunate to be in leadership positions and roles. In 2010, I was asked by CBRE, the CEO, to move to Hong Kong and run the property management business line, which was the biggest business line at the time. And I had 5 years working in Hong Kong, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And the APAC region, just so you're aware, the APAC region is about 16 countries, all the way the west to India, up to China, north into into Japan, and then south down to New Zealand. So 16 countries within that remit. And I was also fortunate to be on the global committee for property management as well, the commercial property management, which only housed about 4 or 5 people, which we trying to create a global enterprise rather than just being country by country. I retired in 2020, last year, about this time last year. And since then, I've been doing a consulting to selective clients. I'm a board member of an ASX company called Urbanize. I've launched a property tech fund with 2 other people. One of them is John Forrest, who's also an alumni from the Western Sydney University. And the 3 of us are creating opportunities in investing in technology for the property industry. I also do a lot of lecturing. Krishan mentioned that. And also I was asked by the Property Council of Australia to conduct interviews of leaders, which are currently on LinkedIn at the moment. But my greatest role at the moment is that I mentor numerous people within the industry and outside the industry. And I'm very fortunate to do that. Back to you, Krishan.
Thank you so much, Sam. Amy, would you like to share information about your company and your professional career journey?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Amy. I'm from Western Sydney Uni. Unlike Sam, I've only been working in the industry for about 5 years, so not quite 45, but I'll definitely talk about my working journey. I'm working in the events industry at the moment, and I've worked in it for about 4 to 5 years, and I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I absolutely love it. I've done everything from weddings to corporate to social, so the whole lot. I got my first job at 14 at McDonald's on the fry station, so very interesting. And then from there, I pretty much took every opportunity I could get. So by the time I started full-time work 2 years ago, I had done 6 casual jobs in a whole heap of different industries. So retail, fast food, I even was a swim teacher for a while. So everything I could imagine, I took the opportunity for, which was really fundamental for my career growth. So I learned how different industries work and how kind of the whole world works together in different career industries. Currently, I am working with the Red Cape Hotel Group, and in specific, the Australian Hotel and Brew, which falls under their umbrella, as a functions and events supervisor. So I've been there for 4 months at the moment. So I started in functions and events supervisor, and I've slowly worked my way into the marketing team. We've got kind of a charity team there as well, so I'm working in there as well, and also doing all their public events as well, which is really interesting. But yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. So I'll pass back to Krishan.
Thank you, Amy. Jay, would you like to share information about your firm and your career journey, please?
Definitely. And welcome everyone. It's nice to virtually see you all. In terms of kind of my career and my history, so, much like Amy, McDonald's, retail, we all kind of started from there. I worked in retail for about 5 years. That was a mix of high school and time in university as well. I was fortunate enough about a year and a half, maybe 2 years into my 3 years of my HR degree to land an internship role with a magazine company, so Choice, the consumer group. And I think, in terms of that an internship or anything in that type of respect just really opens up your door. That's all it took for me just to have that step in. So fast forward into, those next few years. So I spent about a year, maybe 6 months to a year in that internship, which turned into a part-time role. So that was like a part-time kind of people and culture admin role. And that suited me perfectly because I was still studying at the time. Which then led into a second part-time role in a HR company called HR Success. So that was a very small HR consulting company. So what entailed that company was really we consulted to small to medium-sized businesses who didn't have a HR function. So basically my last year of uni was pretty hectic. It was a final year of uni, 2 part-time HR jobs. It was really crazy. And then obviously post-uni, it was time to make that big step into, a proper full-time role, which then landed me into a company called HKA. HKA were basically a construction claims company and consulting and advisory services. Fast forward then a year and a half into HKA. So that would have been around March. So March of this year, I actually was made redundant from that role. So obviously that was quite a massive hit, especially at a young age as well. But in saying that, I feel everything happened for a reason. I kind of picked myself up within a week and a half, found a new role at AC3. So here I am, people and culture coordinator at AC3. A little bit about us at AC3. So we provide secure cloud solutions to businesses. So basically I'm not a tech person at all. So I had to say, just explain it to me in plain English, please. In plain English, it's basically we provide, private storage, like online storage for companies. And we also provide other tech solutions like cybersecurity, tech recruiting, and help with digital workflows and capabilities and things like that. So yeah, a bit of a roller coaster, but here we are. So back to you, Krishan.
Thank you. Hi, Andrew. Thank you, Jay. Andrew, we'd like to know about your career journey and about your firm, please.
Hi, guys. Andrew Pascalis. So I started, I've always sort of been in sales. I've done everything from sell cars to home loans and kitchen appliances. And about probably 14, 15 years ago, I started at Appliances Online. And actually that was through a schoolmate who worked there. So already my networks I was using my networks to get a job. Set up the commercial division for Appliances Online, which was a national role, and we were successful with companies like NRMA, Suncorp, setting up a supply chain with them. A lot of childcare centres, Queensland Department of Education. And from that role, then I shifted to a supplier role with Tempo, which brings in white goods and TVs. And I looked after the Asia Pacific region for that, and learnt a lot about supply chain and built up a lot of networks. And then moved on to Harvey Norman Commercial Division. They offered me quite a good role, and set up a few supply chains there. And just before the end of the financial year, I decided it's time for me to go out on my own. And I've started a logistics company. We're just getting that off the ground. I also look after renewable energies because I believe there's a massive future in that area. So I work for a company, I contract for a company called Carbon and Solar Solutions, and doing things like fitting out airports and industrial warehouses, putting renewable energies, not just solar but water and lighting solutions onto industrial warehouses. No doubt Sam will know all about that. And as of Monday, I'm also I'm setting up a call center in the US for a agricultural technology team, an Australian-based agricultural technology team that wants to sell agricultural technology to the US. So on Monday, I'm also setting up a call center in the US, albeit remotely. So Krishan, that's I guess a little bit of my background and what I'm doing.
Thank you, Andrew, for sharing that with us. I have a question for you, Andrew. Do you have mentor? And if so, what role have they played in achieving your career success?
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky. I've had probably 3 very strong mentors, and what role they've played in my success is it's more the advice that they've given me, and that might have been advice they've given me 15, 20 years ago, and at the time you sort of take it in, but that advice 10 years later, when I'm going for a role or I've got a job that that sometimes that advice pops into my mind, and it's unbelievably useful. Not only that, but also if I'm setting up a project and I feel like I'm at a roadblock, sometimes I'll call up those mentors and I'll say, hey, this is what's happening. And they might say, well, back in, 1990, whatever, we had this problem and this is how we solved it. So those mentors have been unbelievably important for me.
Thank you for that. Sam, you have worked around the world. Do you have mentors, and what role that they have played in your career success?
Yeah, Christian, I'm just going to separate between coaches and mentors just for one moment. A coach, if you treat it as an analogy of a team, a sports team, the coach will identify different areas where you should really technically do better. Whereas a mentor, in my opinion, is a person that holistically listens to you. You're very well trusted, and you feel very comfortable about talking about any parts of your life. And mentors don't just provide coaching or mentoring for your personal or career, but in fact, all of your life. So I think it's very important to make that distinction. As far as mentors for me, I've had a number of mentors. So what I tended to do was have a mentor within the organization I was working with at the time, someone that I really admired, generally a very senior director of the organization, that I asked if I could just mirror some of the aspects that they created, and another person outside of the organization to give me a little bit more perspective. And similar to Andrew, I've had a number of mentors. One of them, Graham Fear, who's about 80 years old. He was a very high level person within the industry, not in the property industry, but outside of that, in mining and also in the wine industry. And I still have him. I still talk to him constantly about different things. And we're just good friends now. And we also provide advice to other people as well together as a team. So thank you, Krishan.
Thank you so much, Sam. Amy, do you have a mentor, and whether they played any role in your career success?
I sure do. I think it's super important to have mentors from different industries and different walks of life, because then you get different experiences and different points of view. I think it's also important to recognize that your mentors are going to grow and change as you obviously grow and change in your own roles. My mentor is my friend, and obviously my mentor called Julie. I used to work with her at a previous role. I used to call her my work mum, but now I just call her my mentor. She always had the frame of mind that she'd always look out for opportunities for me and always do what was best for me, even if it wasn't kind of the most ideal thing for the company we were working for at the time. When I actually left that job, I was in 2 minds about leaving the current role I was at to move to another role. And she was the one that kind of gave me that push and kind of really recommended to do what was best for me. And that's what we really should be looking for in a mentor. I think it's also important to have a support network as well as your mentor. I have a great support network with my family and my friends and my partner. And when I was at uni and when I was at working, they were always really understanding that sometimes uni does come before your family if you have a big assignment due. So surround yourself with a great support network and also have great mentors in your life so you're always on the right path. Back to you, Krishan.
Thank you, Amy. Jay, same question to you. Do you have mentors and whether they have played any role in your career success?
Yeah, most definitely. And as you know, the previous speakers have just mentioned, then it's always good to have a handful and not just rely on one person. Different mentors all provide different things. I've got two currently. So one being my previous manager from Choice, and she is an absolute amazing woman and amazing HR professional. And I've consistently keep in contact with her. And my relationship with her is more based on knowledge sharing. So she gives me a lot of advice in terms of my role. Sometimes it's quite surprisingly, sometimes I give her some advice. She had only called me a few months ago, advising that her company wanted to apply to being, one of the best places to work in Australia. So we kind of chatted about what my business does, what she currently does, and, what we could fill the gaps with there. So that's, one avenue of a mentor, and it's been really good in terms of knowledge sharing. But then also another one I've got is my current manager at AC3. And the way I see that is that's more my development avenue. So she's obviously my current manager. We have formed a good connection, and her kind of role in my mentoring is more about my development and kind of ensuring, further career progression and success as well. So, as we've all kind of touched on, you can't, you really have to rely on all those networks. And coming back to all of this, the moral of today is, the key networks you make and the relationships and how well you continually build those and actually, continually facilitate them over the years as well.
Thank you, Jay. While we are with you, I'll ask you another question. Do you belong to any professional networks or professional membership organizations? And if so, have they helped you advance your career?
Yeah, so I'm a part of what's called AHRI, so AHRI, which is the Australian HR Institute. So it's basically the largest Australian body of HR, professionals. I actually joined that quite early into my career. I think I even joined it when I was studying, because you can actually kind of apply as a junior kind of studying license. And that was really good to assist in terms of resources, information, just entering into the workplace. So even though probably at that time when I did connect with that group, I hadn't even probably applied for any roles yet or had anything, but it was still good to set a foundation of knowledge and what's happening outside of the uni world, because uni is so singular as well. It's only one facet of our lives, and for all of you students as well, like there's so much more post uni. So it's really good to get that visibility of what's going on in the world as well after uni, and what it means for you moving into that. So, and I still continue to be part of that to this day as well.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Jane. Andrew, how about yourself? Do you belong to any professional network or professional membership organization or bodies?
Look, I do. And this is a really good question, because I think, whilst and going to networking events at work, try and go to as many of those as you can, because, you will meet people, you'll form a friendship, and that they will then, be able to help you down the track. So always go for that. But in terms of like organizations, I've got to say, going to a sporting club or a local community club, everyone's got something around them that is that they can go to, that they will make friendships, and a lot of these people will be able to grow your networking group. Like for me, you know, I live over the North Shore, so you know, like going to a sailing club, and I know that's not, you know, there's not near everyone, but you know, if you're really serious and you know you want to meet some really important people in the business world, going to a golf club or a sailing club, and I know it sounds a little bit, I'm trying to think of the word a bit snobby, but put your name down at a yacht club and get on a boat, or put your name down at, you know, go the local soccer club or the rugby club and help out, or become a coach or play, and you will make lifelong contacts that I guarantee you will help you in the business world. And just one other thing as well is, you know, use your family. Your parents might be in businesses that will know people. You know, ask them to if you know someone who's a prominent in a business you want to get into, or industry you want to get into. Your friends, they'll know people. You know, but do it in a nice way. Don't do it in a pushy way. But you know, use every avenue, like, and not just at work. There's so many other opportunities to build your network, and that's how most of my jobs have come around, through outer networks that weren't at work. So there we go.
Thank you, Andrew. Sam, given that you have over 45 years of experience, do you belong to any professional membership organizations and so forth?
It's probably which ones I don't belong to is really the answer here. But let me just go through them. The Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, which is called RICS, the Australian Property Institute, licensed real estate agent in that group. I'm a Justice of the Peace and I belong to the JPs. The Property Council of Australia. I also agree with Andrew. I think any type of community work, I really believe that you should give back a little bit to the community. So any type of community network is really important. And also I'm a big fan of tennis. So I play tennis on not so much these days because we've got lockdown, but I played tennis on a Friday morning in a businessman's club that I started. I was invited 20 years ago and I'm still there. So it's just a really important thing to do different things. One of the things that is really frightening to people is that they are scared to go to these networking functions. What you need to do is get out of your comfort zone. I really implore you to do this. Get out of your comfort zone. Go to one of those functions. If it's a sit-down function, eventually we'll get back to sit-down functions. Just say hello to the person next to you. Even if you're really feeling uncomfortable, say hello, just say your name. It's amazing what that does. And those little things will provide great relationships over a long period of time.
Thank you, Sam. While we're with you, Sam, there's a question from a student. The question is, before starting the relationship with the mentor, do you ask them to be the mentor, or it just happens naturally? And if it is something, you know, that you need to ask for, how do you go about doing it?
My personal opinion is that you need to ask. It's very difficult to ask sometimes that someone is very senior to you, or, you know, is seen outside, but what can they say? They can either say no, or they can, you know, it's important to ask the question if they would consider being a mentor to you. I feel that you need to ask that question. Some of them do evolve over time, not dissimilar to what Jay was talking about, what Andrew was talking about, Amy, but I feel that generally if you want to have a more constructive way, you need to pick the type of person that you want to be, or pick the type of person that you feel will give you some good guidance, and ask the question.
Thank you, Sam, for sharing that with us. Amy, can I ask you the same question? Do you belong to any professional network or professional membership bodies, and if they have helped in your career journey?
Thanks, Krishan. I obviously work in the hospitality industry, so I am a member of Women in Gaming and Hospitality Australasia. It's just something that's really relevant to my industry. They provide a lot of free resources, which is specifically great, so you're always learning about what's happening in your industry. I also love LinkedIn. I think my love for LinkedIn came from uni, especially the service enterprise. So definitely recommend LinkedIn. It's great for job searching, great for an education point of view. Something that I've really enjoyed doing during lockdown, and it's something every student can do. Eventbrite, if you just search up networking, there's lots of free events on there about networking events. They're so easy. They're like an hour. It fills in your time in lockdown. It's something to almost look forward to, if that sounds normal But yeah, I definitely recommend jumping on LinkedIn, just typing out business networking, or if you're in hospitality networking. There's so many free events, so I definitely recommend them, and they're all via Zoom, so you can do it from the comfort of your lounge or in your bed, even if you're in lockdown.
Thank you, Amy. Sam, I have a question for you. What skill set do you see are most valuable in our graduates who are entering into a role or who are seeking progress in their career? And this is post-COVID-19 pandemic.
There's a number of skill sets that you need. There's not just one or two. I think communications is really important. Doesn't matter that you're not articulate, just important to get out there and communicate, whether that's online or whether that's in front of someone or on Zoom. Just make sure you communicate, and those skills will evolve over time. I was very poor when I first came out of university in talking and being articulate, so I evolved over a long period of time, and I made that a really important aspect of my skill set. I think being a team player is also important. If you're not a team player, generally you can't lead a team, so it's important to understand to be a team player. I think that's an important skill set. You need to, in our world, in the real estate world, you need to solve problems. So I think you need to start experiencing problems and trying to solve that. You can do that in your personal life, but more importantly, you need to do that in your career. I think being organised as well. And what I mean by being organised, I think you need to set some consistency in your lives. And that is get out there and do some work in the morning in terms of training or walking or whatever you do, some exercise, and then set some lists for you to do during the day, at least some capability. So organisation is really important, I think, to set up a consistency to make sure that you keep evolving. I also feel that you need to be a self-motivator, and you need to motivate yourself and keep going. You heard Jay getting a bit of a hit, you know, when he was retrenched and then going straight back into it. You need to keep motivating yourself. It's very important. And one of the other aspects, and it probably comes back to networking, show a little bit of confidence. Just make sure that you can, stand yourself up, make sure that you feel comfortable within yourself, and get out there and show a little bit of confidence. You don't have to be, silly about it. You just need to be a little bit stronger in yourself. That's it, Jay. That's it, Krishan.
Thank you, Sam. Amy, would you like to tell us, what skill set you believe that is most valuable when our graduates entering into a career or that progress, particularly in relation to your industry? That will be great.
Thanks so much, Krishan. Two skills that I find really important in, I suppose, any time looking for a job, but obviously, especially with kind of getting a job after the COVID-19 pandemic. Resilience is a massive one, especially for me. Last lockdown in 2020, I was stood down from my role. I was working in a hotel. I applied for over 25 jobs during that time just to get back on my feet during that lockdown period, and I only got one. Being able to bounce back when entering the workforce and when entering the jobs, and having the understanding that you might not get the job, that's okay, and turn it into a life lesson by, asking the applicator person, can you give me any feedback on it? What could have I done better for the next time? So turn the application into a lesson. The other one that I think is super important is be willing to get the job and be understanding that you're not going to leave uni and be the CEO of a company. Sometimes you do have to start from the bottom and work your way up. I know I started as a receptionist at a hotel because I knew they had a great events team there. So I started as a receptionist, and then slowly as I built up my experience, I was able to move into the events industry. A great example I always look back on is Jim Carrey, the famous actor. He started as a janitor just to get money, and then he slowly worked his way into the acting industry. So be a Jim Carrey, start at the bottom and then work your way up the top.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Amy. Now I'll ask the same question to Jay, being the HR professional. Jay, would you like to answer the same question for us, please?
Yes, definitely. I feel like my beliefs on the skill sets, they basically touch what Sam and Amy have both said, and I would probably happily more add some extra points onto what they've said is touching on what Amy said, you know, resilience is definitely one. And I think it's, for me, twofold in that, you know, resilience and patience as well. You know, you may not get that job, you know, you may hold on to something so much and wanting it, you know, but you just may not get it, you know, that's life. But it's good practice for every role that you apply for, every internship that you have, every interview you have, it's all practice. I think the one thing I always say is never underestimate the power of internships, like especially with mine, you know, all it took for me was one internship, 6 months of experience, and that led into my world into, you know, careers. And again, as Amy said, it's bouncing back from those hurdles. You know, employers want to see that you're resilient and not, you know, just, you know, break down at the slightest little thing that's happening. And then I guess touching on what Sam said, you know, confidence, I always like to preface it with, we should always have measured confidence. We don't want too much of it. We don't want too little of it. You know, you need to have enough that you stand out, you make just the right impression and people go, oh, you know, wow. You know, you just want that right amount. If you're too little, you know, you're not going to be seen. That's just the way of the world. If there's too much, people are going to think, wow, this person just wants to talk there, you know, all the damn time. But having that measured approach of even just having the confidence to reach out to recruiters or businesses or managers, one of the biggest things that I've learned from job searching is that just because you also don't get a job, that's not the end of the world. If I would highly, highly, highly suggest, if you don't get a job, then actually connect with the hiring manager of that role that you missed out on, because you can bet 100% 3 years down the track, that person may be recruiting again and may remember you from 3 years ago. So it's just all about that type of relationship building and just keeping, you know, always being across, you know, a lot of different things, you know, as well. So, yeah.
Thank you, Jay. Before I ask the question to Andrew, can I please ask the students to post their questions in the chat box? That will be great. Over to you, Andrew. How about yourself in your field? You know, what skill sets you think post-COVID are essential for the students?
Yeah, I think what, you know, the previous panelists have spoken about trying to get the role. I think once you get that role, and a foot in the door, like a Jim Carrey, look at opportunities within that business to build your skill set. So you might see you might be, you know, a receptionist, but there might be a sales division or an HR division in that company, and speak to people in that division and ask if you can, in your spare time or whatever, sit and learn with them and build up those skills. And I guarantee you, if you show that enthusiasm, a manager, a boss will notice, and they will earmark you. They might not tell you, but they will earmark you for progression. I know I did it when I was the national sales manager at Appliances Online Commercial. I would often walk through the call center at Appliances Online, and I'd listen to the people on the phone, and the ones that had the energy and ones that had the exuberance, I'd slowly strike up a conversation with them and see if they had the potential, you know, to eventually put a progression in place for them to come and work for me. And one other thing I think as well is also within a business, if you're at a company, if they have a sporting team or a charity team, or, you know, or groups within the company, go and give your time to those divisions as well, because you will then network with people within that business that can identify to help you grow through the ranks.
Thank you, Andrew. While we are with you, there's a question from the audience. How would you reach out to your network for a job or referral?
I think, you know, my network, I always see that more as their friendships that I've formed. And, you know, sometimes, you know, I will call, I'll literally just call one of them and say, hey, I'm thinking about leaving my current job. I'm thinking about going into this market. What do you think? And, you know, they may well know someone that can put me in contact with someone in that industry or that market, or might know someone at that company. And that's I guess how I would do it. You know, if I was going for a role, I'd definitely try and use my network to see who knows someone at that company.
Okay. Any member of the panel would like to answer the same question? How would you reach out to your network for a job or referral?
Maybe if I could give an answer to that, I think that it's not sometimes about reaching out and asking for a job. I think sometimes just saying that you're now looking for an opportunity and you know that someone is working in an organization that you really quite like, and just asking the question rather than saying, can I have a job in your organization? That doesn't really hold very strongly with people. But if you say you're looking for an opportunity and you really like the job, like the company that they're working for, you know, who should you reach out to and see what they do? Sometimes they will go out of their way to help you to get that job.
Great, thank you. There is another question from the audience, from our students. How do you overcome apprehension or anxiety, or if you're inverted personality, when you're, making that networks? It might be very challenging. Any of the panel members, please.
I'm happy to answer this one, or be one of the ones to answer it. I think as a kid, we always used to play the game hopscotch. I think it's important to look at networking and going to a networking event as that. Just break it up into steps. So just the first step is get changed, put on a business outfit, put on your blazer, tick that off your list or jump that on your hopscotch. Second step, get yourself to the event. Don't overwhelm yourself on the morning thinking, I need to do this, I need to get there, I need to hand out these business cards, I need to connect with these people on LinkedIn. If you've got that in your brain and your brain's all clouded with all the things you have to do once you get there, you're not going to be able to enjoy the event for starters, and you're not going to be able to take any value away from that event. So break it up into little hopscotch steps, and then once you're at the end, you can look back and say, oh, look at all the things I did today. Look at all the great connections I made.
Thank you, Amy. Jay, there's a question from the students. How do you go about applying for internships?
Yeah, I think this is where it comes back to, that measured confidence. And I think people always tell those stories of like, oh, if you really love a business, you just get in contact with them and you just say, I'm really interested. That's, I would say, 50% true. I do believe in, the best way is reaching out. The way I categorize it is if you know that a company is hiring for a role, that is just out of reach for you, well, then they're obviously looking at, the moving and the changing of that team. So they're obviously open to new resources or new things within that team. So put it in this scenario, I go for a people and culture coordinator, but I can't just quite reach it. I've just got out of uni, I'm looking for coordinator admin role, I can't reach it. Well, they're obviously looking though for someone with those skills or someone that can come in and help the business. I think the best way is to always actually reach out to that hiring manager and say, be completely honest, because again, networking is also about honesty. I'm interested in that role. While I don't have necessarily those skills, would there be, an opportunity or some time that you would have for me to actually, just sit down and, it can be just shadowing, someone in the business or just learning a few skills, and you'd actually be quite surprised by how many companies now are actually saying yes to interns. Like I've got 3 interns starting next week, 2 in the marketing team and 1 in one of our tech teams, and all they're doing is shadowing, and that's it. They're still students like all of you, and they're just looking for a foot in the door. And I've interviewed a few of them because we do a proper kind of interview process still. And one of the questions I always ask is, what do you want out of this experience? Because if you go into the experience just for experience, you're not going to get much out of it. You need to go in with a clear mind of what are the things that I want to learn? What are the things that I need that will set me apart from someone? And what are the skills that I can take away from this that will actually help me get an actual job? So in kind of circling back at that is just reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out. And again, the worst I can say is no. And if it's a no, connect with them. It's just as simple as that.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you. There's a number of questions that are coming through now, which is fantastic. Another question is, when having a mentor, is it best to keep the conversation professional at all times, or do you find mutual interest to help connect on a personal level? Any of the panel members, please.
I think Sam sort of spoke about that. Mentors are they become almost like a parent figure. So you can with some of my really close mentors, I might call them up, on a weekend to just have a general chat, and that may lead to conversations about work. It may lead to conversations about about my job and how I might not like it, or how I'm loving it, or whatever. So if you keep it professional, I believe you're not going to get the full advantage of that. So you need to, because they need to understand you, your personality, your life, and that way they can then, that will then help them to give you the right advice.
Good. One more question from the panel. What's the biggest challenge you have faced in your career, and how did you handle it, and what did you learn from it, which shaped who you are today? Maybe I'll get this question for each one of you to answer. Probably start with Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Krishan. I remember the biggest challenge I had. There was a number of challenges all through my career, but the one that really I recall when I was reading this question was that very early on in my career, this manager said to me, "You'll never amount to anything, and you will never create an opportunity for you to be a leader." And that was a very negative response to me, and I was really quite surprised by it. And I then went out of my way to show, and I've got to say that person, never went on to be anything more than just a small manager of a small team. So I was quite, I was taken back, and I did what Jay mentioned and Amy mentioned and Andrew, that, you just build yourself up, get a little bit of confidence in yourself, and then move forward. Sometimes the negatives, and you learn from those, and you actually create yourself. And I was very fortunate to then have very senior leadership roles. And I remember that particular instance very early on in my career. In fact, it was it was probably the second year in when I came out of university.
Thank you, Sam. How about you, Amy? And then we'll ask Andrew and Jay the same question in that order, please.
Being in the workplace for only a short time, I obviously haven't faced many challenges, which I'm obviously super lucky for. A challenge that did come to mind was about 2 years ago. I was working in a job that I absolutely loved, but the work environment became quite toxic. And when the work environment's quite toxic, obviously that has an impact on your mental health, which is no good. But in my head, I knew that there was going to be great job opportunities at that place. But in my heart, I knew that it just wasn't mentally well for me. So that was a challenge where you kind of had to weigh up your mental health, which is obviously something that is so important, opposed to your job opportunities. My mentor, Julie, who I spoke about before, was really great to me in that time. And she encouraged me to take that other job and leave the toxic workplace, which now looking back on, I am so incredibly grateful. That really shaped me into always follow your heart, what you know is right, and always do what's best for your mental health. There's going to be thousands of other job opportunities. Your mental health is something that's super important.
Thank you, Amy. Andrew, how about yourself?
I couldn't agree any more with, I couldn't agree any more with what Amy said. She's absolutely right. There's plenty of times when I've been in a job and, it's great, and then it does turn toxic, and sometimes just knowing when the time to leave, it's, you do sort of sometimes have a belief or a dream that this job is going to be your whole career, and having to let that go can be very hard, but it's like Amy said, it's always the right thing to do. I think for me, anything in particular stands out. There's always been lots of all the setbacks I've had, or all the major issues I've had, I guess, of being able to go back and learn from them are so important. And, one of the major things that just happened only last year is I was bringing in $2.5 million worth of furniture for Harvey Norman from China, and COVID put the brakes on that. And having all the other setbacks in my career and learning from them gave me the skills and the tools to be able to handle, a massive shipment not coming in, and being able to deal with my clients, and being able to work out the best solution possible to keep them happy, Harvey Norman happy, and myself happy as well. So I think every setback is without a doubt a learning tool, and one day it will all click and it will absolutely help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Same question to Jay.
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson for me, or the most biggest lesson for me was, as I previously mentioned before, that, only in March, a few months ago, I was made redundant. And I think we have in our minds as, young professionals, young students, that people tend to think that redundancies happen, later on in life, but the fact is they can happen whenever. And that was quite a shock to me, 5 months ago, nor did I ever expect that would happen. And I think that was a very big learning curve for me, because I can completely be honest in the truth that I was one of those people that thought that's not going to happen to me. I'm new to the professional world. That's going to be years down the track till I ever have to manage that. Well, the fact of the matter, it came quite early on. So for me, my lesson was firstly that, but then secondly, how we've all mentioned earlier, bouncing back from that as well. So, it took me a day to get over it, but then after that day, I was like, right, I can sit here and, sit in the corner and say, oh, why me? Why me? But it's so much better to kind of just pick yourself up, get straight back into it, apply for jobs. And that's where my networks came in as well. I was messaging them. I was saying, this is what's happened to me. Anything that, any knowledge you have, any avenues you have would be greatly appreciated. So it's just about, for me, that was the biggest time of a really big learning curve. And now I can honestly say that if that ever happened to me again, I'd be kind of like, okay, done this before, I can do it again, So that'd probably be, my response.
Thank you, Jay, for sharing that with us. We have another, this one is quite a long one, a long question. With the poor mental health becoming a greater concern within the workplace, especially during this COVID, as professionals, do you believe vulnerability in the workplace and being open with your employer or even a network negatively impact how your level of resilience are perceived? Do you think this would damage the potential for an individual to progress into higher roles? Any member of the panel, please, if you would.
I'm happy to take this one on. I think this is a massive part of my world. In terms of HR, we have to constantly manage expectations, emotions, vulnerabilities, all of that type of stuff. I can hand on heart say 100% do not ever feel vulnerable, do never ever feel worried about how you're perceived in the business. You are, one person of, millions and billions of other people that probably feel the exact same way as you. And it, if you're a part of a good organization, and in terms of my world, I would hope that all organizations are like this, but the fact of the matter, they're not. If you're a part of a good organization, they will not worry one bit. They will work with you. They will support you. Myself and my team consult with multiple staff members who are juggling, vulnerable, caring responsibilities, homeschooling, all of that type of stuff. People are stressed, but the thing is, it's hard to be, for lack of a better term, it's hard to be annoyed with someone when this is our world now. We've all got crazy things going on. We've got dogs barking in the background, kids running in during Zoom meetings. Like that's the world right now. So don't ever feel like that will set you back at all. A good manager, a good organization should always be supportive of that, always.
Thank you so much, Jay, for sharing that with us.
Just on that, look, I couldn't agree more. I suffer from ADHD, but I always kept that quiet for a while, and people would think that I wasn't a good worker in some respects. And once I started telling people, they, or my managers, they were aware of it and they were able to support me, and my career absolutely took off. And I think the other thing is with, mental health problems or any sort of, if you are struggling, letting your manager know, but also not just using it and then just not to do work, but letting your manager know what the problem is, but also trying to look at ways of to help and support that. If you show that to your employee or to your manager, they love that, and that shows initiative, and they will support you, to the nth degree. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Andrew. The next question is about books for personal growth. Our students use a book from Rose Singh, Rise Warrior Rise. But this question here, what books would you recommend for personal growth? Anyone of the members, please.
I'm a big book fan. I literally read 2 or 3 books a week, so I'm more than happy to answer this one. I've got 3 personal growth / business books I would recommend. Discover Your True North by Bill George, I believe it is a great book. It kind of just covers lots of individual leadership stories. Your university library actually has it, because I borrowed it when I was at university, and they've also got an ebook so you can read it at home as well. The second one I would recommend is Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. She's an absolute amazing leader. Heaps of great TED Talks on her, but her book is especially great as well. The final one is a series of books. It's called The 1 Minute Manager. They're just short books. They're about 100 pages each, so you can literally read them in a night. And they've got lots of good little topics on management, how to grow into management, and then also personal growth books. So they're really great ones if you just want to have something quick to read. But yeah, they're my top 3 recommendations for personal growth books.
Thank you, Amy. While we're with you, there's a question for you. You mentioned that you took on up to 6 casual jobs. How did you manage your time with the full-time study at university?
Thanks for that question. Firstly, I had an amazing support network. My family and friends were great. So every time I was like, sorry, I've got a shift on, or sorry, I've got uni assignments to do, they were super understanding. So definitely have a great support network around you. The other 2 things I would recommend is I love Excel spreadsheets. So I used to plan out my assignments. As soon as I'd get an assignment, I'd write do first introduction paragraph, and then all the way down to edit, check word count, and then I tick them off. I found that really helped me a lot with managing uni assignments. The last thing I would recommend that I still do now is I'm very old school, and every morning I'd get up and I'd open my computer up with both my work calendar and my personal calendar, and I'd go through my planner like an old-fashioned diary. They're not that around anymore, but I still do have a diary, and I write down my times for the day. So for example, this morning I wrote 9 to 11, I've got the webinar, and then I went through my work calendar and put in the rest of my meetings and tasks for the days. It just really keeps you accountable, and then it's so satisfying at the end of the day to see everything's being ticked off.
Thank you, Amy, for that. One more question over there. If you were to go back in time, how would you secure your first professional job? So any member of the panel, if you'd like to answer this one.
In terms of my experience, I know it's going to be the most boring answer ever, but I wouldn't change anything. These things, I'm a firm believer of, things happening for a reason. You fall into an internship, you fall into then a part-time role, which falls into a full-time role, you study, I don't think these things can be planned either. You may have a good plan and say, I want to go in and do this and do that. I want to apply for that role and I want to work my way up. But in all honesty, things are out of your hands. Sometimes things just fall into your lap, things happen. And it's about how you, surf those waves of, professional career and how you handle that. So, I've started doing internships and retail experience, and then here I am now in a secure P&C HR role. So in terms of my world, it would be change nothing.
Thank you, Jay. That's all the time we have for the questions. Thank you so much. And I'll leave it to the next person to take on now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Krishan, and to the panel this morning for all the valuable knowledge and practical tips that you gave on networking. Also, a special thank you to Nikki Held for her presentation and sharing very professional and expert knowledge to our students. This online networking event would not be possible without all of your generosity. You will be helping our students work towards achieving their own career success. So thank you for that. Now, to the students, I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about the Executive Mentoring Program. This is an exclusive bonus opportunity for you, and it's based on your performance in your study and your engagement in this unit. We will be selecting 80 students at the end of the semester to be given the opportunity to participate in this semester's Executive Mentoring Program. Now, to motivate you all and get you engaging, I'd like to introduce you to a student who has participated in the Executive Mentoring Program. Jasmine was selected based on her performance while in her second year of her Bachelor of Business, majoring in marketing. Jasmine will tell us, Jasmine, you're there, and you'll be speaking in a moment. Could you tell us a bit about your experience with being involved in the Executive Mentoring Program?
Of course. Thank you for the introduction, Kay. Good morning, everyone. I firstly want to start off by saying thank you for having me today, and thank you to the School of Business for inviting me to speak about my experience with the Executive Mentoring Program. I want to start off with one key thing I want you all to take away from all the learning activities and all the mandatory events you have to attend throughout this semester, and that is networking is powerful. Last semester, I was just like you all, sitting in the service enterprise and listening to all the industry professionals speak about their stories and thinking to myself, no way I'm going to ever have a story like that. But one of the speakers at the Professional Careers Conference was Christy Atkins. I found what she was saying very intriguing, and it really resonated with me. And she was actually one of the mentors I thanked for one of our assignments. At the end of the semester, I was invited to the Executive Mentoring Program. I heard all the teachers talk about it, but I never thought I would actually get invited to go. When I got the invitation, I was really nervous, and I kind of convinced myself not to go because I didn't know what to expect. I had no friends going, and I just didn't know what to say or do in general. Upon arrival at Parramatta City campus, we were divided into groups where we got to speak to two mentors and kind of pick their brains a little bit about how they got to where they are today. And one of my mentors was actually Christy Atkins. And I was really happy because I got to listen to her story and kind of ask her some more questions about her business, Wink, and how she's got it to where she is today. Two key things that I recommend if you do get selected to go to the Executive Mentoring Program is ask as many questions as you can and bring your resume just in case, because you never know what you can get out of the opportunity. After listening to Christy, I spoke to her after our mentoring session, and I gave her my resume and told her a little bit more about myself and where I want to go after uni. And I kind of asked her, could you look over my resume so I could get some tips about how I can make it better? The following day, I actually sent Christy a message on LinkedIn just saying thank you for giving us so much information and advice about life after uni. And she replied through an email, and after many back and forth emails with Christy and her general manager, Joe, we actually had a virtual meeting because this is the time we went into lockdown. They offered me a job role as a partnership and marketing coordinator at Wink. So I was super nervous. I didn't know, I had a job outline, but I didn't know and didn't think I could do this job outline because I had no experience in this. But realizing now after working for Wink for nearly 3 months now that you actually know way more than you think you do, especially while studying at this point in time. I'm really using my studies to gain that experience. So that's my story with the Executive Mentoring Program. I highly recommend, if you do get selected to go, take the opportunity because you never know what you can get out of it, the experience you get, and of course, the network you get out of it. So yeah, if you have any questions or want to ask me any advice, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn at Jasmine Alessio, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. That is a true example of chance and taking opportunities when they arise, and also finding the confidence, even though you may not have felt confident, to step up and engage with somebody that you felt could help you. So thank you for that. And students, if you want to be selected for this semester's program, please start to proactively engage in this unit. It's not too late. We've got this event, post-event, as well as the next event coming up, and everything in between in terms of your assessment activities. Now, when you if you do choose, and we encourage you to share on social media, particularly LinkedIn, please don't forget to use the hashtag WSUPCC and post. You know, you can even post something as simple as, you know, what I learned during the event this morning, something even like that. Gets you proactively engaged online. Now, also, I should not forget to say that engaging and interesting posts will go in a draw to win a $100 JB Hi-Fi voucher, and there are 2 up for grabs. So, you know, give it a go. You know, you never know. You never know. Also, before we finish off for today, just a few reminders to all students that this is an ideal time to record and upload your personal elevator pitch. So this was explained to you, it's in your assessment, so go off and use that opportunity. You're also reminded to resubmit your event journal within 5 calendar days. And students, if you are yet to take your photo evidence for your journals, please do so now. Well, thank you, everyone. It's been a great event, and this brings our webinar to a conclusion for today. Have a nice day, everyone.